Hi. Again, in this episode, I will dwell on car tire particle pollution. In general, most people, while talking of pollution of air, soil, or water, seemingly ignore or unaware of tire wear particle pollution of the three realms I mentioned. In fact, the National Pollution Control Board of India or the state level pollution control boards do not really worry about the tire wear pollution, even though the numbers are huge and the consequences are still larger. That is the problem with tire wear pollution. A rough estimate by a US agency says, and I quote, that tire wear pollution is at least 2,000 times larger than what is called tailpipe pollution, tailpipe of the car actually. And this kind of in other words, tire wear pollution generates more than 1 ton of ultra fine particles per each kilometer driven by a car. In other words, the 4 tires combinedly produce 1 ton of fine particles, and that is for every kilometer driven. Every kilometer, 4 tires and 1 ton particles. Well, this number actually could be unbelievable, but it is a real fact. Because when we talk of tires, we are talking about tires of 4-wheelers, trucks, trailer trucks, as well as what are called the 2-wheelers of sorts, in fact. And the particles are actually 23 nanometers or less in size. 23 nanometers or less in size. 1 nanometer is 1/1000 of a micron. And for example, human hair is has a diameter of 60 to 80 microns. So, well, of course, 1 micron is 1/1000 of a millimeter. It is the size that defies the human imagination of makes the humans incapable of imagining the tire pollution. Well, of course, what are the consequences? Consequences are basically the tire pollutants contain a large number of carcinogens, and the people who are affected most will be the younger population as well as the so-called retirees or the older population, older people. So, this is a very important aspect of pollution that we must be worrying about. In other words, globally, there are something like 250 different brands of tires, and the tires are, say, roughly 20% made of synthetic rubber. Another 20 or 22% is constituted by natural rubber. And as we all know, the synthetic rubber comes from crude oil or oil, one of the derivatives of crude oil. And for example, the tire wear particles, one estimate says, produces 36 milligrams, very small number, 36 milligrams per kilometer, which is 1850 times smaller than the particles or the particulates from I have to revise that. The tires produce 36 milligrams per kilometer, which is 1850 times larger than the particles produced by tailpipe emission. In other words, the point the research is driving home to the public and policymakers is that one, tire particle pollution is one of the very tough problems to tackle because the proliferation of tires and automobiles all over the world. That is one. Number two, the particles are extremely fine, in the size of a nanometer scale, are measured in nanometer scale, and therefore quite difficult to see or track unless there is a aimed or targeted research that is undertaken. Number three, these particles cause pollution in the seawater and in the non-river water or lake water, wherever this pollutant is driven into by the air currents or water currents, there will be a share of the tire particle pollution, which is actually a category of microplastic. And the point is, like other microplastics whose size is larger, and other plastic pollution which are obviously very obtrusive to the human eye, this microplastic tire particulate pollution is invisible. And that is one of the reasons that this threat, this danger, this risk got a backbench or a back seat in the realm of pollution. Now, 78%, one estimate says, of ocean microplastics is from tire particles. 78% of the marine plastic pollution is actually by the entry into the oceans of the tire particles, which is considered as a microplastic. But unfortunately, it is invisible because of the, I said 23 nanometer. 23 nanometer is quite difficult to even view under an optical microscope unless the investigating team has an access to. These days it is very, very easy, rather easy compared to 20 or 30 years ago for an analyst to make use of a scanning electron microscope or such equipments which are useful in monitoring tire particulate matter. Why is it a problem? Something like 2 billion tires are produced annually, sold annually, 2 billion, globally it is. And this is supposed to go up to 3.8 billion by 2030. 2030 is not very far, just 7 years. That is the point. In other words, the entire world community of nations and the transportation sector releases this huge volume of tire pollution, tire particulate pollution, and it is actually out of 2 billion pieces of tires. One estimate says, at the current estimate of the production, if a tire is placed, all the tires produced in the world globally are used in the world globally are placed sideways, one above the other, it will reach the moon. There will be sufficient number of tires to cover the distance from the surface of the earth to the lunar surface. This analogy is given to drive home very strongly the point that tires are a huge commodity. That is one. Tires, when used, undergo wear and tear, and these particles are really indeed small, 23 micron or less in size, and the research by companies like DuPont, they are always aiming to reduce the tire wear, or as it is called, increasing the service life, safe service life of the tire. So now what happens to these particles? Tire particulate matter, tire wear particle. Once it reaches the ocean, well, it is a larger component of the microplastic pollution of the coastal ocean or in the deeper ocean. But then what happens to this? When such material is ingested by organisms, marine organisms, well, obviously that will enter the gut. Okay, fine. Once it enters the gut, and it is going to affect the health, safe living, and reproductive ability of the marine fish life. And in the longer run, the marine fish diversity is bound to suffer immensely. And following this, the next sufferer in the planet Earth will be the humans, because we depend on, to a large extent, we depend on what is called the seafood. And if the seafood is scarce in supply, if there is a scarcity of seafood supply, then it is going to affect human food consumption, and naturally that will affect human health. And another aspect we have to now worry about is how to avoid or reduce the tire wear particles from entering the natural watercourses, finally ending up in the ocean. For example, one of the ways very easily we can propose and then probably build also is to treat this storm water. Well, what is storm water? Storm water is actually not the, okay, we had in India or in Kerala, we have been going through we had gone through actually the southwest monsoon, and the IMD and related authorities made a suggestion based on the data that southwest monsoon was kind of below the normal, or there is a deficit. But stormwater, for example, the northeast monsoon started off, at least in Kerala, with a huge downpour of exceeding what is called the historic levels in the past years of rainfall deposition. And these are capable of washing the paved roads clean off, washing the paved road clean, very clean, of all the dirt, including the tire wear particles that got stuck in there. And what happens with water, or the heavy rainfall water or the storm water? And our situation in Thiruvananthapuram, what happens is this water very easily and quickly enters the natural system. One of the ways we could prevent the excessive discharge of the tire particles would be to treat this storm water or pre-treat the storm water before it is allowed into the natural system of surface waters. So, point is, this is an unveiled or unknown threat to most of us, and therefore we have to approach it with caution.